So the next part is Cryptid Court. So the way this works is that we put a poll up on YouTube and we have 3 randomly generated cryptids, and you get to vote on which one you want us to debate. And one of us will try and debate that the cryptid does exist, and the other person will try and debate that the cryptid doesn't exist. And what is the cryptid we're talking about this week?
We're talking about a wonderful creature from Iceland, the Lagarfljot Worm.
Yeah, that's so hard to say. But anyway, can I just call it the worm?
Sure.
Lagarfljot
Worm.
Lagarfljot Worm.
Yeah, and it's from the town Egilsstaðir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is in eastern Iceland, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this week, to change things up a bit, Mika is going to be taking the pro position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be trying to argue the against, I guess.
Yeah, keep you on your toes.
Yeah. So do you want to go first? I think you want to explain what it is, and I think...
Okay, so this worm is a wonderful creature in sort of a lumpy shape that lives in the lake, the Lagarfljot Lake. It has been seen for centuries. It has been seen since medieval times and documented in a variety of different ways, such as poems, paintings, maps, histories, etc. It is a very beloved creature in this town, and you can even go on tourist boats to find it. It has its own origin story, which is compelling. And I don't know, like, lots of people, from scientists to children to the government, have acknowledged that it might exist.
Okay.
And it's like a worm snake thing, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Isn't there a story that it was like a slug that got too big because it touched gold?
Yes, well, that's a mythological tale. So the tale is that a little girl had a gold ring given to her by her mother, and she wanted more gold, so her mother said to put it under this black slug and put it in a box. And then a few days later, she checked, and the gold and the slug had both multiplied in size. She was afraid of the slug, so she threw it into the lake. It got bigger and bigger there until eventually it became the worm we know today. So the reason I like this story and I find it compelling is because a lot of myths grow out of wanting to explain a real phenomenon. So there are stories like, how did the leopard get its spots in African folklore? And then there's the story of how the bee got her sting in Greek mythology. So leopards and bees are real. I think we can all agree that.
Yeah, sour slugs.
Yes. So you can conclude from these multiple sightings over such a long period of time, plus the mythic origin story, that the people are indeed seeing something in that lake.
But since it's a mythic origin story, doesn't it sound like that's where it sprung from? It sprung from folklore?
Do you think that leopards also sprung from folklore and aren't real?
No.
Okay, so just because something has a myth about it doesn't mean it's not real.
Okay, but the myth is, how did the leopard do something, not is a leopard real? Or how does a leopard have spots, not is a leopard real?
Well, there are lots of other myths about animals and how they came to be from other animals, like especially in like Native American myths. Not that I can think of one right now, but there are stories that say the origin of creatures, not just certain facts about them.
Okay, but this is saying that it was a slug that got really big?
No, there's a difference between a mythological origin story and the actual creature. I'm saying that because there is a mythological origin story, it shows how long this creature has been known to the society, and it gives more credence to the idea that there is definitely something in the lake. You don't have to believe the story to believe that it adds a lot of depth to the idea of the creature.
Well, I think it's sort of the other way around, that the story is what caused people to think that there was something. Like there's a mythological origin story, or there's these folk tales about the lake, and then people have been exposed to that, and that's in their mind. Then they're more likely to be prone to see or to think they've seen a creature in the lake based off of that.
Yeah, that's true, but there's so much evidence.
Is there?
And a lot of these people aren't believing in the myth. They're saying like that the myth is there to explain this real thing. So, for example, in the 1980s, there were people laying a telephone cable in the lake, They saw the mass and disturbance in the water, and then they checked later, and the cable was broken in that area, indicating that the creature had probably bitten it or broken it in some other way.
Couldn't have been like a underwater current pull the cable?
The cable was very strong and designed for use underwater.
So why did the creature bite through it?
Because the creature is very strong. They did not anticipate having to engineer the cable for wildlife disturbances.
But even if something was made to go underwater and not break, we know that things do go underwater and break.
Right, but in the 1980s, when they had been laying telephone cables under wire for a long time, underwater.
Isn't there always going to be an element of something breaking?
Yeah, if there's an animal that's interfering.
But it doesn't really sound like there's much proof that an animal did interfere.
They saw the animal. They saw a mass, and it was moving around to different parts of the lake while they were working on the cable.
I don't know. Because are you going to talk about the video?
Yes. Okay, so first of all, like I said, there's lots of evidence. It's on maps and other documents all the way back to the year 1345. And there's a pretty clear video, and the sightings continue to this day. A panel in Iceland has certified the video as being really the creature, as being real, and the government has said, even if that video isn't really the creature, as Thomas might argue, there's no reason not to believe in the creature itself. The government has weighed in here.
Yeah.
But I do think that the video is very clear, and it's showing something in that lake.
It is showing something, but wasn't the video analyzed and it was proven frame by frame it doesn't actually move forward?
A panel has certified the video.
Okay, but the panel are what, government officials?
Yes.
But a film analyst went frame by frame and saw that it doesn't actually move forward.
Well, last Cryptid Court, you said that we should trust the government, and when they say
I said I trust the government.
you said if the government says like this is real, then that's proof. That's more proof that it's real.
That was the Tianchi monster, wasn't it?
No, it was you've said it every time, so pick a
I didn't
cryptid.
say it every time. What? Tell me what I said.
Well, like for the sightings.
Wait, the orang mawas?
Yeah.
No, I said that they funded a search and found footprints.
Okay.
Why don't the government fund like underwater drones or something?
They don't need to. They already have that video.
Okay, the video is not very good. I think most people. What I've heard is that it's probably a frozen fishing net or something because it doesn't even move forward. It just sways side to side, and there's a bunch of gaps in whatever it is.
Well, it's just relaxing.
So what do you think it is? You think there's a 40-foot long
I never
slug?
said it was 40 feet long. It's
What
just
reports say about that long? Well, how long do you think it is?
I don't know, like a normal size worm thing.
That's not normal size for a worm.
Just a little.
You think it's a worm?
No, it's like maybe well, I don't know what it is. It could be. It's probably some sort of reptile.
A reptile?
Or
in Iceland?
What's more likely, a reptile or a worm? I mean, pick whatever one is most likely, and that's...
Neither are that likely.
Well, I don't know. Or like some sort of fish type thing. Could be that as well.
That's a very large fish.
Well, there are fish in that lake, and fish can get big.
So you think, well, maybe people have had sightings of big fish now and then and have mistaken it for a worm.
Could be some sort of eel type thing.
How big is the eel?
I don't know. I'm just saying that there's something in there, and it's not a standard fish, and it's really long and wormy.
There are eels in Iceland, like the European eel.
Mm-hmm. It could be an eel then.
So it's a European eel that some people have seen?
What, do I have to say what I think it is? Why can't I just say that I believe that there's something in the lake?
Okay, well, you did this to me where I was trying to do this with the Tianchi monster, and I was like, oh, well, maybe it's like this kind of fish or something. You're like, well, then it's not a cryptid because we know that there's fish there. Yeah, so it's a big fish. That doesn't count.
Okay, well, let me just add a few more points. So, it's interesting to me that the worm is a different shape than the typical Loch Ness shape, which is like sort of a plesiosaur or sea serpent type thing. That indicates to me that it's not just a copycat cryptid, it's its own thing entirely. So that gives you more evidence because they didn't just say, oh, I heard that other lake has a really cool thing in it. Let's say we have one. No.
I heard it was a large serpent with humps.
Yeah. Did you look at a picture?
I looked at a few different pictures.
Yeah, the picture shows that it's not a Loch Ness shape. It's more of a lump shape.
Well, a lot of Loch Ness descriptions are very lumpy.
Loch Ness is usually more lithe and skinny, and this shape is lumpy and chubby. But anyway, let me just tell you about this man, Helgi Hallgrimsson. He's a biologist, okay, and he spent years researching the lake. This is what he has to say about all these concerns, okay? We should be careful not to confuse the legends with the sightings. So the legends are just that, legends. The sightings, however, are actual occurrences that need explanation. He says there are some phenomena that could explain many of the reported sightings, such as tangled items in the current, ice moving, gas bubbles, or optical illusions. But not all. He believes that the myth of the worm can be divided into 3 categories. One is legends drawn from urban myths of dragons and witchcraft. This would explain the beginning story that I said about the worm slug that grew up from the gold box and got thrown into the lake. Because at that time in medieval Europe, there were lots of people making these stories all over the place. Right? But this story is very particular to this place. It's the specific story of this lake monster.
Well, I've heard similar stories of like creatures that like small worms or slugs or snakes that were put into wells or into small things, and they have gold with them, and then they grow too big and have to go into the lake, and then they terrorize.
So maybe all these lakes have these creatures. Maybe they're all explaining. Imagine you're a person, way back then, there's not a lot of scientific knowledge, and you always see this huge thing in the lake, and you're like, oh, how did that get there? Why is that there? And you decide to explain it with this story of the gold slug. And then you hear other people from the nearby village have a similar thing, and you tell them your story about the gold slug. They're like, oh yeah. So that's how a myth that's shared among all these different places could be born. Right. So anyway, Helgi said that the myth of the worm, some of it is of legends, and some are natural phenomena such as gas and vegetation, which are factually, you can explain them away factually. And third is he believes that there are paranormal phenomena, sightings that are beyond the scope of scientific understanding. There are sightings that cannot fully be explained by reason. His opinion is that these are paranormal activities, much like people who claim to see ghosts, elves, and hidden people. That is why some sightings can't be explained and why only some people can see the worm. As a scientist, I have at least not been able to fully explain this. So it's true that in Iceland, many people believe in I guess what we would call fairy tales. There's a high degree of fairy tale belief there, and I'm not going to speak on how true those beliefs are, but yeah, lots of people, I mean, they believe in this creature. And if a fully trained biologist, believes in the creature, I mean, I guess it's bad that he says it can't be explained by science, but that just means sometimes, it hasn't been explained by science. I'm
very surprised that one of the explanations is that it's paranormal. Well, so it's like a ghost?
No, I don't know, because...
That seems like... I don't know, I feel like that's sort of a cop-out, though.
Well...
Because you can say that about any cryptid. You say, oh, well, how come we haven't found it? It's like, oh, well, it's multi-dimensional, or it's paranormal.
Well, think of things that people used to think were paranormal, such as flies generating on dead bodies. People used to think that this just happened and that it couldn't be explained by science, but now we know that is not what happens and that flies lay the eggs for the maggots. So he's saying that he can't explain it right now. And
therefore it's paranormal?
He's saying he can't explain it right now, and he's explaining that it's paranormal because of his beliefs, like many other Icelandic people in the paranormal. However, that doesn't mean we, looking into this, have to believe it's paranormal. We can believe it just hasn't been explained yet, and that there's something else going on. He says there's something else going on.
I feel like if a biologist is trying to say that something is real, a life form is real, and they go to paranormal, that kind of sounds like there's not any physical evidence for it then. That's not what
he said. He said that only some people can see the worm. Translate that as only some people have seen the worm. Sometimes things are just elusive. You'll look for your whole life and you'll never find what you're looking for as a biologist. So yeah, I want to finish off my argument with saying if the locals believe it, why shouldn't we? Especially if the local scientists believe it, why shouldn't we?
Well, probably because he's not really giving a scientific reason for why it's a real creature.
He's acknowledging that there are some holes in the sightings, that some of them can be explained by other phenomena. Yeah. But I just think the fact that this man is saying that there's other things out there that haven't been explained yet, we should pause and think, do we actually know the whole story? And like, are you actually able to explain away everything that everyone's seeing out there?
See, I don't know about this because, I mean, there's a lot of cryptozoologists who believe in a lot of cryptids who are biologists by training.
Okay.
So by that logic, you should believe in all of them because a biologist said so?
No, but this man has lived there a really long time, and he's been studying the lake his whole life, pretty much.
Yeah, but then if it was a real flesh and blood creature, you think you'd have something more substantial to present.
Maybe
I don't know. If you want to see it from like a paranormal angle and that like it's beyond like a physical creature, then that's like, I mean, I don't really know how to respond to that. That's beyond my understanding, I guess. So I don't really have an argument for that. But I just feel like if it is a physical creature, then we should have better evidence.
Well, we do have some evidence, and like I said, maybe this is the work of more than one lifetime. Maybe more than one person has to dedicate a lot of time to looking for it for us to find something more concrete. Like, people have been looking for, the ivory-billed woodpecker for ages, and they go out and they look and they can't find it, and then sometimes it comes up, like...
Okay, but this is a gigantic creature...
In a lake,
yeah.
A murky lake. It's way easier to go through a forest and look for a bird than it is to go into a murky, cold lake.
I don't know. What about using sonar then?
I don't know. Have you looked into if anyone has used sonar?
I haven't seen anyone using
sonar. Well, I
sonar.
haven't seen anyone who has done it, so that means that they don't have that evidence yet to confirm or deny.
Okay, but why doesn't someone do that then?
Well, maybe they should.
I think when it comes to lake monsters, like a lake, you have one area that you need to search. And you said maybe it's a reptile. Well, then it needs to come up for air. And even if it's not a reptile, it's got to eat a lot. So it's got to be pretty active if it's as big as people report it to be. I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be as hard to find as...
There are a lot of fish in that lake. If it's a type of fish...
They've also done a lot of fish surveys there, and they haven't found... How come they don't find this giant worm thing if they find brown trout and Atlantic char?
All you have to do is, like, fish for a few fish and bring them up to do a fish survey, right? I mean, what kind of fish surveys are you talking about right here?
They're trying to estimate the populations.
Okay, so if they're using the net size for, like, a trout, maybe that's not the size that would catch a huge worm.
It never is going to get entangled in one of those nets?
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's very smart.
All right.
Maybe it stays away from disturbances on the water.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to say?
I don't know. I feel like I've said everything I have to say.
Yeah, I've said everything I have to say as well, so I guess we'll leave this up to the listeners to say who won today's debate, right?
Yeah. Mika looks very smug.
I always try my best, that's what I'll say.
Okay, will we move on?
Okay.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel for full episodes or download the MP3 from the links below.